Lionel, is that you?
There, I think I got it. Hey, Kaylee.
Hey, Lionel.
Kaylee,
Lionel.
can you do me a favor?
Sure.
I always feel like I'm imposing. I always feel like I'm asking too much, but this time I could really use your help.
Okay.
Is there any way possible that you could tell me if this is the first podcast since the last podcast?
Let's see. Here's the mailboy's desk. Let me. Oh, that's sharp.
Yeah, be careful.
Yep. Okay, found it. There it is. Yep. Hey. This is absolutely the first podcast since the last.
Perfect. So today is Thursday, June 25th.
Well, although, to be honest, it feels like it's been July lately.
Yeah, I know. It's hotter. You know what? It's hotter than a snake's ass in a wagon rut. Our guest is laughing. Guest, you have to be whoever you are, whoever the mystery guest is. You have to be quiet till we're finished. We have a bit that we got to do. Okay. Boy, I can hardly wait till this is professional.
I know. Swing and a miss.
Yeah, I want to be
Swing
great.
And a miss.
I was going to say something too. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, this is unedited. To get this out in a timely fashion, to make it like it's we're up to date. We're not going to edit this, so whatever we say, it's going to stay right out there on the airwaves for the whole world to hear. So, Kaylee, if we start discussing my hairstyles and things like that, like we often do, we should probably, ixnay on that stuff because it'll be boring for everybody else.
Yeah, true. But just for the record, you have an awesome hairstyle.
Yeah, I know, especially since I cut it myself. And last night on June 24th, we did our virtual chat room for our Patreon members, and we had a tour of Chris Adams' layout, his New Haven North Shore
Valley Line.
Valley Line, that's it. I forget. I know it's New Haven.
I know that.
I know he's Bill Schneider's friend, who's a big who works for Rapido. I'm getting an in with Jordan Smith and all the guys at Rapido because I did such a good job with their interview.
Woohoo!
Yeah. All right.
Good interviews.
It was great, and they were extremely hospitable. Okay, so Kaylee, this was your idea. I think this was mostly your idea. We were sitting around one night. We were in the boardroom, kicking back some daiquiris and having some tacos. And we said, who should we talk to next? And then together, both of it. Well, you said it first. You said, hey, you know what? We should talk to John Sacerdote, the president, director, whatever he is, of the Amherst train show, the Amherst Model Railway Society, Big E show in 9 acres or whatever the show's called. It's that big one in Springfield.
The big one.
Yeah, the big one, the biggin. And I went, yeah, what a great idea. So he's here now in the studio, and now we can take the muzzle off him, and he can talk too. John.
Hello, and thank you for having me.
You didn't know we were going to tie that mask on so tightly, did we? Did you?
No, I didn't.
Good. I was going to ask, was it too tight? If you said yes, then it's perfect. If you had said no, okay, got to pull it tighter next time. But it seems like we just hit the right spot.
So John, since the last time we talked, which was in January of this year, 2020, and I have a bone to pick with you, but we'll get to that later.
Okay.
Have you heard anything in the news? Has there been any developments in the news that might concern the big Springfield? What do you call it again?
The Amherst Railway Society Railroad Hobby Show. It's a mouthful.
It is the Amherst Railway Society Model Railroad Show, or yeah, close enough, or Springfield, or
yes, exactly.
or the Big E. But didn't you tell me they don't like the Big E anymore?
the Big E doesn't like anyone using that phrase. It's trademarked and all of that good stuff. But they don't mind because it's they do it in writing somewhat. But when people say, "Oh, it's the Big E show," it allows people to associate our show with their large agricultural fair that they have every year. So they're really kind of okay with it.
And in fact, the Amherst show, the Big E, the Model Railroad, Springfield, Palapalooza, Palapalooza.
Right.
Yeah, that is the second biggest show they have all year.
That is true. Other than their own fair, we bring in more people in the buildings than any other show other than their own.
All right. So
and we're both coming off of record shows. We had a record as far as how much money we were able to make, which we're delighted because it means grant money and all that kind of stuff. But they just came off of 1.6 million attendees in their show.
Holy mackerel.
Yeah, it put them in fourth place nationally, I think. Depending on how many they get, they all slide around but they've consistently been in the top 5.
So the Big E agricultural show in Springfield, Massachusetts, just down the road from the Basketball Hall of Fame, is one of the top 5 agricultural shows in the country.
Yes, sir.
Holy mackerel. And on that grounds, the only show second to that is your very own Model Railroad show. Yeah,
we take more buildings than any of the other folks that use that space.
And you say you had a record year because of your gross income?
Yes. Yeah, we had great response from sponsors, exhibitors. The gate was pretty standard. It was about 22,000 if you count everybody. But it really helps us with what we plan to do with the money. Again, people still wonder what we do with the money. We actually give it all away after our expenses.
Oh, you give it all to charity?
Other nonprofit organizations related to railroads. To date, last year we exceeded $800,000. This COVID-19 business is going to slow us down a little bit, but we should be okay.
Now, what is this COVID-19 you speak of? I don't really stay up on the news. I'm live a hermit existence. So,
actually, we're watching very closely. Connecticut, Massachusetts, New York, especially. They're all in the right place, heading in the right direction. The number of hospitalizations have been going down consistently for almost 30 days now. So we're actually in phase 2. Massachusetts is in phase 2 tomorrow. All that means is other businesses are going to start to open up and allow with social distancing, with masks, seating in restaurants and hair salons and all that kind of stuff. So we see it starting to ease, but they're paying very close attention to each of these phases, which last anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks, depending on what happens, if there's any spikes or anything. Now, the reason why I talk about it so much is it has a direct relationship on what we are going to do. So we look at this. I personally look at this every day. I just had a meeting with the folks at the Eastern States Exhibition Friday. And we're full steam ahead, just to put it out there. Our contracts are going to go out the last week in July, first week in August. We'll know better when we see how many we get back. If we're going to have a shortage, maybe have to dip into the 200 people that are in the wait list. But based on how much we get back, based on where the state and federal and local governments are at the time, and based on what happens at the Eastern States Fair, which is the last 2 weeks in September, the first week in October, we'll be able to make some better decisions. But as of this writing, this date, this time, we are on full speed ahead. And what I've been doing to just let everybody know, I have been sending at the first of every month a little email blurb out to all exhibitors from last year to let them know where we stand. And I got on the first one, I got about a 25% response. So I had over 100 emails come back from exhibitors saying, "You darn well better have that show." is what many of them actually said. So it was a very encouraging for me, and I loved hearing it from some of these people that I've known for years. But we'll see. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. But we're pushing as hard as we can, as hard as they'll allow us to push.
So I'm getting all choked up. This is so moving. So the conversation from our end was that they canceled TrainFest in Milwaukee.
Yes, I've heard. I really get a lot of information from a lot of people. But my understanding is they're using that specific building for a hospital, and they won't be able to turn it around on time. So I can understand why they're not having theirs, but I also understand that World's Greatest Hobbies in Greensburg. I look at their website, and they're taking tickets for shows a little bit later on in the season. Not anything that, as I recall, not anything in June, maybe some in July. I haven't talked to Randy Bachman in a while, but we do talk and try to do what we can to help one another.
Is that Randy Bachman of Bachman Turner Overdrive?
I'm not sure. It's either that or Bachman, the manufacturers.
Okay. So then after I heard of TrainFest being canceled, then I got an email from my friend Jim Sacco, who said, "Hey, I just got an email from Springfield, and they say they're going ahead full steam."
That's accurate.
And then me and Kaylee were talking, and then we said, "Hey, we ought to get our old buddy John Sacerdote on here." What is exactly your title again?
I am the show director. I was the president of Amherst Railway 2 years ago.
All right. Do you know a guy named, he's the modeler simply known as Kelly. Do you know him?
No.
He lives in Medford, Oregon, and he's the president of every model railroad club and organization within 102 miles of Medford, Oregon. And I'm beginning to get the sense that maybe you guys are on the same path, like you're in charge of everything within 102 miles of Amherst, Massachusetts.
That's probably pretty accurate, actually.
Now he's just connected with everyone within a 102-mile radius of Amherst.
There you go.
Exactly. Okay, so
within that range,
so I'm interested in. I think everybody is interested in. Believe it or not, John, people actually listen to this, and so we're going to be reaching out to a lot of people, and I'm sure. So they're going to hear it right from the horse's mouth, and I'm interested in what kind of conversations, who do you have, say a crew of 5 or 6 that you rely on to help you make decisions, or?
Yes, actually, there is a show committee, mostly made up of the board members. We just had a board meeting this past Wednesday to let everybody know where we stand, et cetera, et cetera. They did not know I had the meeting. Well, I had the meeting with the Big E the 2 days after that, the board meeting. So I need to update them. But our advanced ticket sales, for example, are going on sale probably starting July 1st.
Okay. And so what is the general scuttlebutt you guys have of, you feel positive, you want to go ahead? I want you to go ahead, even though I have a bone to pick with you about last year's show.
Yeah, we're going to take up that later.
We're going to be discussing that at great length, I think. If this show ends up being 2 hours, it'll be an hour and 40 minutes of me complaining.
On the bone of contention. I got you.
Yeah. So you want to go ahead. I bet you everybody wants you to go ahead. Are you guys kind of do you not want to, do you mind talking about the possibility of not going ahead? What is your weather markers? What are you watching? How are you guys going to try to determine what to do?
We have contingency plans in the form of 3 different budgets for this year. We have a full steam ahead budget, we'll call it. We have a modified budget if the show needs to be smaller because of social distancing or what have you. And then we have a no show at all budget, which we really don't want to plan on. But we're ready. And we've talked about all 3 scenarios at great length. But we take our lead mostly from the folks at the Eastern States Exhibition. They're having their show or their agricultural fair.
Right.
They've already got several other bookings for building rentals They're the usual folks, just like I'm one of the usual folks, from now to the end of the year. So they're actually going to have their first, they still aren't having them in June, but they're picking up again in July. So there are buildings to be rented indoors and outdoors starting in July through the end of the year. Obviously not during their show, of course. But things are looking pretty good. There's just more hoops to jump through because now we have to also give out plans to the health department of West Springfield. But we have a plan in place as far as masks and distancing and hand sanitizing and everything we need to do.
Oh, so you guys are already trying to get ahead of the curve kind of thing and trying to figure all that stuff out ahead of time.
Yeah, I honestly, I think we have it figured out. The worst case is we won't have as many exhibitors. I'll rent the same amount of space and I'll just keep people a little bit farther apart. So we'll be able to cover social distancing. We're talking already about providing masks as a possibility if that's still needed at that time, with our logos on them, of course.
Of course.
And so, or if someone wanted to sponsor them, hint, hint.
Yeah, there you go.
But we're talking about a lot of different things. Every possible scenario we've talked about ad nauseum, to tell you the truth.
So I know you put a lot of work into this. I mean, you pretty much start up almost right away after the show's over. I know you give yourself a few weeks off. Like, has this really added to your workload of trying to figure all this out?
Yeah, because when the Big E folks announced you have to have an in-writing plan as to what you're going to do, et cetera. But it doesn't faze me that much. You're right. I take February off, and in March it starts all up all over again. I took a couple of extra weeks just because we were in the middle of the pandemic, or the beginning of it. But March 15th, I said, listen, we've got a plan. We're still 8-9 months out at that point. Let's hope for the best and plan for the worst, hope for the best.
Yeah. And you're going to try to take your lead from the general public and how late do you think you'll be able to hold off before you decide?
Seriously, if the Big E takes place, which is the last 2 weeks in September, first week in October, we're on. And in talking to them just this past Friday, they said, you guys will be on. You're 7 months out. And they had actually said, even if there's so many other things scheduled that they see us having the show 100%. So I feel like we're in real good shape. And we're still, as of right now, we're 7 months away. Yeah,
for sure. Absolutely. Like it really doesn't matter what my gut feeling is because it doesn't matter. But I mean, my feeling is that, eventually, it's going to be important for people to get out. And, by that time, things will have changed again. They change daily almost. And it's pretty.
I talked to a couple of guys, and because of the cancellation of TrainFest and maybe York will happen. They actually said by the time your show rolls around, there's going to be a lot of people, in their words, there's going to be a lot of people jonesing for a train show.
Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I think our vendors are going to be very happy this year, regardless if we have an abbreviated show or a full show, just because, like you said, John, so many people are canceling shows left, right, and center that there will be a lot of buyers.
Yes. Yeah. Honestly, Kaylee and I have talked about this earlier, and whether it's snowstorms or pandemics or whatever, the people that want to buy will be there to buy.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, you've weathered all sorts of things before. This is just a new and different experience for you.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I'm not sure. You don't answer this question if you don't want to, because, because I don't want you to. But I'm interested. Like, say for example, or maybe Kaylee, I need some help here. Should we even go down the path of what ifs, or should we just decide that you, me, and John will meet again in October and talk about it some more?
I think it would be actually not a bad idea to have a follow-up in October, just to keep the public abreast of what's going on and what's developed. And then also, too, at that point, I think, John, you'll have a more definitive picture as to who's going to be coming and how you're going to lay the plans out.
Yeah, that's a great idea, because our deadline for contract return is mid-October. So, and by then, because there's some early bird rewards if you turn your contract in early, as there's always been. But if we had this anytime in October, we'll know for sure, because we could play what if forever right now.
Yeah.
Because we really don't know, and it's a wait and see. As most of our, all these governors and folks are health people are saying, they take it day by day, as we are, and I think that's a wonderful idea to follow up with this in October.
I think that's a great idea, and I think mostly I just wanted to have you say it, right from the horse's mouth, to let people know exactly where they stand, and because they heard John say it, that's what they'll know for sure. Have you talked to any of the local hotels? Like, I guess they're pretty excited to have any kind of business.
Yes. Yeah. We actually, I'll give you a little side story. We saw this as a possible opportunity to change the show to April. And to postpone it a little bit. And so the first thing I did was talk to a few exhibitors, and they were all of the mind, no snow, possible better weather, etc. But I talked to other exhibitors, and I said, well, your show is the first show of the season, so to speak, quote unquote. And there's a lot of product release there, and this, that, and the other thing. But so, I still was kind of on the fence until I started talking to some of the hotels, and the room rates were not the same at all as the dead middle of winter. So one of the big reasons why we like having it is we get just crazy inexpensive room rates from a lot of the hotels. They love the fact that they're usually doing no business in January, February, other than our train show. So they were freaking out that they were going to lose all that business when they usually don't have any. So that really said, for this year, let's not go there. Although there are some exhibitors that say, you probably could get bigger attendance, and who knows for real, right? Until you try it. I like being the first show of the season. I like the fact that we hardly have bad weather, knock on wood, and I like the fact that it really kicks it all off for the year. So we're holding for this year.
Yeah, and how many years has it been that it's always the weekend between before the Super Bowl when there's nothing happening? So how many years now has it been?
Are you ready? This is our 54th show.
Holy mackerel! So since 1966,
long time ago.
So
I'm not doing the math, so I trust you.
Yeah. Okay. Well. When January 1st, 2020 came, I thought to myself, and just like that, 1970 was 50 years ago.
Yeah, there you go.
So I had two really good. Oh yeah, when do you feel like the show took on the importance, I guess would be the word, significance that it has today? Like, was it 20 years ago, 30 years ago? When do you feel like the show became what it is now?
I think maybe 2006, 2007.
Really?
Yeah. And so about 14 years ago, maybe 13 years ago, honestly, when we opened up additional buildings and it became so large.
Okay.
We were able to do some things for kids. We've always kept the admission for children 15 and under free. And it's always been a big deal for us to promote the hobby to the young folks. And that'll never change as long as I'm around. We're not charging children because we want them in the show. So between that and making the show larger and getting more and more interesting new exhibits, what's out there, that kind of thing, I think that did it for us.
Okay. I think that's probably, if I thought about it, 15 years ago is when I started. I started hearing the noise about Springfield. There's this show you got to go to, Springfield. How about this for a question? I'm not sure if it's much of a question, but I'll ask it anyways. Does this seem like more of an exciting challenge to you now that, because you've been the show chairman now? What did you say you were, president, chairman?
I was president, but I was still the show director.
Show director. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm the show director still. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a Pope-like job.
Yeah, right? It is. Yeah, I know.
I die. Yeah.
I know. I walk around the shows and I go, John Sacerdote's a friend of mine.
That's right.
I walk.
True.
Yeah, exactly. I walk up to the hot dog stand and I say to the lady, John Sacerdote is a friend of mine, and she says, "You want a hot dog or not?"
Yeah.
So, would you? This is a new and exciting. This is a new and different challenge. Are you enjoying the intensity that this is this year?
Well, that's a great question. Actually, I seem to be more excited about trying to meet the challenge. So we'll see. Yeah, it's just one more thing we have to get through, but there's a lot at stake. I want to be able to make as much money as we usually do to give that money back to other nonprofits who count on us. They really look forward to the grant program. We're right in the middle of signing up for the grants right now for people to apply for the grants from May 1st to the end of June. So we've got about 2 or 3 weeks to go, and we'll see what happens. But we it's very important for us to give that money back to promote this hobby, the history, restoration, and all that stuff that the money goes to.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a neat thing not to gloss over. I mean, we'll talk about it again, but yeah, there's probably societies, different railroad nonprofit organizations that have come to not necessarily expect, but hope that the money's there every year.
Yes, yeah, and we have some folks that are really working on worthy projects that we enjoy helping, especially if it means we could help them complete the project. That's a nice thing for us when we could give the final amount of money to get something done for an organization. We enjoy that a great deal, actually.
Kaylee, something that we could possibly put in for a grant is we've been hoping to put a roof on the Stuart L. Sterling building now for several years.
Yeah, you finally replaced this cardboard ceiling.
Yeah, I mean that's why we're not on the 49th floor of the Stuart L. Sterling building, because we use that floor as the
ceiling.
Yeah, as the ceiling. It also doubles as an outdoor pool as well.
No wonder why Mailboy uses the crate. Then he doesn't have to worry about his cushions getting soaked.
Exactly. Okay, John, let's get down to brass tacks here, buddy.
All right.
We will do. Let's all plan to do this again in October, regardless of whether you're going forward or not. And then we'll do it again for the week before, like we did the last couple of years.
Sounds great.
Yeah. But let's get done before we finish up here.
Is this the bone you have to pick?
Yeah, this is it.
Okay, go ahead.
So you've always been very cordial to me, especially since we got to know each other over the last 2 or 3 years. I really enjoy our friendship. Can I say we're friends or just acquaintances?
No, you can say we're friends. I believe we are.
Okay. So last year, I know you're so busy, and I said, hey, I know Jim Sacco. Will you allow Jim Sacco to come regardless of what happens? Are you still going to? I bet you he replied to you already.
Oh yeah, he actually emails me maybe once a month. So I enjoy the correspondence we have. He tells me what's going on in his area. This is what I've heard, and then he's always got a funny tease in there somehow. So I when I see an email from him, I look forward to it.
Have you ever noticed you've never seen Batman and Jim Sacco in the same room?
Yeah.
Just putting that out there.
It's interesting.
Yes, exactly. So anyways, last year, when we were talking about how I hang out at Jim Sacco's booth, and he very kindly allows that to be the portable AML studios, I said, hey, wouldn't it be cool if I had my own badges, the Modeler's Life podcast badges, 2 or 3 badges for the immediate, for the immediate staff of the podcast. And you said, sure. And I walked up to the office window, and the guy, the ladies there, very pleasant, said, get out of here, kid. We don't know anything about you.
You know what? I'll take responsibility for that. I barely remember saying something about that. But here's the secret. If you don't remind me right before, I tend to forget things if it's not in writing, because I live off of lists.
I know.
I'm And I'll tell you what, I've got a little list right here. I'm putting that down right now.
Well,
I can't forget this. No.
and I got to be honest. I tell everybody the same thing. They request this and that from the podcast, and I'm like, I got one job: get the podcast out, and everything else after that becomes secondary. So
I get it. But yeah, we'll get you badges. We may do something special now that you mention it like this.
There you go. and I think you can be pretty sure I'll mention it again in October.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to bet on it.
Yeah, and I'll probably mention it again when we record in January.
January, sure.
Yeah, I probably won't stop. I think Kaylee can back me up on that one.
Oh yes. You will be hunted down like a mad dog.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just a pest. That's all I can tell you. All right, John, I think this was pretty cool. Everybody's going to hear it right from the show director's mouth. It's going to be, how's the Amherst Society going with their building and their 7.5-inch railway and all that?
Oh, cool that you asked. Thank you. Building's doing well, although it's been locked up pretty tight for the last 3 or 4 months. But, we go up there singularly to clean. Kaylee and I actually were up there a couple weeks back to check out a couple modules and do some things. And but the 7.25, we've stopped work on it for now. But with phase 2, it's okay. Work outside, masks, social distancing. So we're going to have something either towards the end of July or early August at the latest. So we're going to pick up again now that the folks are telling us it's okay to do so. But it's going to be double track oval on our back 1.5 acres. We've got about 2 acres total. That's phase 1, and eventually it's going to go around the outside edge of all our property, right across our driveway with crossing gates and the whole bit. So we've got a container in place with some of the goods that we need to turn that into a replica of a small station with a platform and all of that kind of stuff. So work has started off great, but and we should have had it done, but we still think we're going to get some trains running before the weather gets cold. So things are still going. The basement is pretty much cleaned out except for some empty boxes and such. Lots of magazines that we have doubles and triples of. We use some for our library upstairs. We actually have a very extensive library now, which is great. And the club layout will be in the basement. HO scale, we've decided. We've done some planning for it already, and there's a committee, the planning committee, et cetera, et cetera. So things slowed to a stop, frankly, in March, and now we're starting. Just at the last board meeting, we said, "Hey, let's start this. Everybody's ready. Government says it's going to be okay in a couple of weeks, 3-4 weeks. So we're going to be right there."
Okay, and like if you have any jobs that you need to get filled, you just give them to Kaylee, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Get her done.
Yeah, get it. Just whatever jobs you have to need done, it's administration, repairs, anything. Just give them to Kaylee.
Yeah.
Because she won't say no. There's no way.
In all fairness, that's right. She never says no.
No, she never says no. She's always eager.
That's why we love her.
That's right. We're trying to bury her alive with jobs.
There you go.
I had one more thing I was going to say. With all your magazines, you'll probably have some sort of library or something, right?
Yes, we have a huge library, video as well as books. We've got a great collection of books and magazines, and it's open every meeting. What we're trying to do is automate it online so you could request reservations, and we already have the barcode scanners for when you checking in and out and everything. So we're trying to go high tech here. But again, that's slowed down when we couldn't have meetings anymore. But
exactly.
that'll all start again end of August. We're thinking of having every year we have a large sale of all the collections that we obtained throughout the year, and we really want to do that again starting in August, September. We think it'll be outdoors because that'll give us more leeway. We'll rent a couple of tents and cook hot hamburgers and hot dogs for people that show up, and And also that money goes towards our grant program as well. So.
And when people ask you which issue of Model Railroader is your favorite, you always say,
"Oh gosh,
yep.
I actually have several."
February 1994.
Yeah,
but my top one though is February 1994.
There you go. This worked out.
Good answer, John. Great.
Hey,
I actually have one, seriously.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. Hey, Kaylee, can you give out our email address?
Sure. Our email address, for those who want to chime in and give John some encouraging words of persevering through this tough times, our email address is modelerslife@gmail.com. That's modelers with one L, like, wow. Wow. This is the first.
Railway.
Or no.
Yeah.
One L like Keely, not two L's like Life Limited Parts.
There you go. I love that.
Wow. I can't believe I choked up for the first time.
I know. And you have the perfect one L like Kaylee. I mean,
Exactly.
Actually, when you and I are doing this show together, it's one L like Kaylee, not two L's like Lionel.
Exactly.
Oh my God. It's so.
Should use that. Yeah.
I know. We were born to be together. There you go.
There we go.
And we have a website, modelerslife.com. If you go there, you'll find out all kinds of cool stuff. You'll even find out about our Patreon page, where you can find out how generally every week there's one free podcast and one that you get if you join the Patreon page. And that's lots of fun. And there's lots of stuff on there about all sorts of stuff. Kylie's got at least one clinic on there. We're going to work on putting more up, and all kinds of stuff and junk on there. And
good junk.
Yeah, it's all good junk. It's all good stuff. It's all quality stuff. John, we have one job for you at the end. You may remember, you may not. I don't think John's ever done this, so we'll just fly blind and see what he comes up with. What do you think, Kaylee? We'll just go blind and see if it works.
Let her rip. Yeah, I would say so.
All right. So remember, a Modeler's Life podcast is considered marginally adequate by 6 out of 10.
That's my cue. Yeah. 6 out of 10 modelers.
Let's try again.
Okay.
That was a good try. It was a good try.
It was good for effort. I mean, for not being prepped in advance. It's
exactly.
You did a good job with it.
Yeah, we apologize for waking you up and all that. All right, we'll go again. So remember, a Modeler's Life podcast is considered marginally adequate by 6 out of 10
lunatics.
How about show badge coordinators?
Show badge door checkers.
Yeah. Parking spot assignment guys. Hot dog vendors.
Yep. That's a good one.
Guys that get to decide who gets to be at the show.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, exactly. It's
floor managers.
Yeah, floor managers. There you go. It goes on and on.
Good.
Would you like another try? Third time's lucky. Lucky.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. So remember, a Modeler's Life podcast is considered marginally adequate by 6 out of 10
people who send me gifts to try to get better space at the show.
See, now we're getting somewhere.
Me and my husband love you to come and visit us at Texan Edna Boyle's Model Railroad Emporium. This week we have Athens Gold Hustler on sale for the low price of $19.95. Right, Tex?
That's for sure, Edna.
We got over 400 square feet at the back of our double wide. We're open 3 hours a day, so bring the whole family. Bring your Aunt Dorothy and Uncle Gus. We got free parking. It's cookout weekend. So come on down to Tex and Edna Boyle's Model Railroad Emporium and get a free budgie for the kiddies.
It's another Lincoln Homer.